Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing great out there tonight, and more importantly, staying safe. We have ongoing severe weather out there already this afternoon to this evening. This was expected. This is going to continue through the overnight hours all the way into Saturday and Sunday. So what we're going to do on this video is obviously not talk a whole lot on what's going on right now. We got people going live, I'm sure, that's got you covered there. Ryan Hall, obviously a household name out there in the weather community, and there's many others too that do a great job. The storm chasers. We're going to keep you ahead of this storm system. So we're going to start off kind of what's going on with what's going on right now. We'll progress it through the overnight hours because there is a significant severe weather threat that's actually increased and gotten larger as far as the area it's going to cover for the overnight hours all the way into tomorrow morning. And then we'll have a totally separate timestamp up for Saturday, which is going to be the big day. The potential for a violent tornado outbreak. I'm just going to keep it real with you guys. It's there across areas of the South. So we're going to speak on everything. We'll get you covered. Awesome graphics I think I have for you folks. You guys will appreciate it. Some of these graphics have town names, things like that. I switched some things up, so hopefully you like it. Give me some feedback on it. But if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. I am praying for everybody in the impact zone. We're obviously praying for no fatalities. We can rebuild things. We can get our lives back together. But once we lose a life, I mean, that's it. So the only way we can try to prevent that is to be prepared and not scared. Of course, I can sit here and tell you all day until the cows come home, not to freak out, not to be scared. But I understand that storm anxiety is a real thing. Anxiety is obviously a real thing, but storm anxiety certainly is, and people are freaking out right now, and rightfully so, honestly. But just I tell you guys, try to channel that in to just being prepared and understanding what's going on. Know how to look at a radar. Definitely know where you are on the map. And I understand not everybody does, and that's not a knock on anybody. I'm not here to poke fun. You guys know that, but it is very important. It's very important with setups like this. So with that being said, let's get going. So what's going on right now? Well, the system is being realized. It's materializing and it's strengthening. And you got a low pressure literally right over the middle of the country. It's over Kansas. You can see the spin ongoing right now. We have non-severe thunderstorm damaging winds in areas of Texas, Oklahoma, and surrounding states, which means we just are getting very strong winds because this low pressure right here is spinning away, and we're getting very strong westerly and southwesterly winds throughout this whole entire southern plains area. And if you've been tuning in, we've been talking about that on and off. We're including that into the videos, and that has definitely been happening. I mean, we've had some people out there that's been showing some crazy video, 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts in this area. Hope you guys are okay out there this evening. But you see the red box area right here? These are the ongoing severe thunderstorm warnings. As of right at this second, just after 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Central Time, there's no tornado warnings, but I think that will change by the time some of you folks watch this video, probably later on tonight or whenever you watch it. So we are starting to get some convection down here in Louisiana. I know you can barely see it. I'll try to zoom into this, and hopefully it'll pop up on your screen for you here in a second. And here we go. You see these storms right here? These could do something, and we're going to speak a lot on those storms right there as we get deeper into the video. But these are the fast-moving storms we were talking about. Severe thunderstorm warnings right now, but they're coming. Okay, so let's stop this and let's just go on and break this down. So this is the outlook for right now through Saturday morning. So if you tuned into this morning's video, you know that this has changed a little bit. We have a massive moderate risk. And I'm going to update this because who knows, we might switch this. They might upgrade it to a high risk. But of course, this is now for what happens between now and when we wake up Saturday morning. Okay, this is not tomorrow's outlook. We'll get into that here in the next several minutes, okay? So we have a moderate risk, level 4 out of 5 in this red area. This includes St. Louis. It includes, I'm not going to zoom in as crazy as I did in the last couple videos. We'll probably do that for Saturday's risk, but this, just because this is ongoing right now, I'll just keep it broad for now, and then I'll zoom into the individual category areas like tornadoes, damaging winds, and hail. But St. Louis, moderate risk. Poplar Bluff, moderate risk. Memphis, you guys have the moderate risk, level 4 out of 5. This has been the area that has changed, though, and I will zoom into this There's been that moderate risk extended south to include a good chunk of Mississippi now, and I might as well just show everything here. So this is the entire moderate risk area, and then you got the enhanced risk area that now has spread into Chicago. It's definitely still in Fort Dodge, almost all the way to Indianapolis now, through Evansville, all the way to just west of Nashville, all the way through Tuscaloosa, just west of Birmingham to down to Hattiesburg, Meridian, Monroe, Louisiana, and pretty much chops Arkansas in half from west to east here. So Jonesboro, you guys are in the moderate risk, and Kansas City right on the fringe of the slight enhanced risk, but I'm not sure. These areas might just be about done just because the storms have already formed and they're already now, starting to move away from this area. But you could have some more convection that forms right into here. But anyways, this is the risk. Now, what's driving this? The tornado threat has increased and gotten larger. So let's go on and zoom into these areas. Okay, St. Louis down to Memphis, and this is going to happen over the next several hours in this area. Okay, so if I click on this, the red area, that's a 15% chance of a tornado within 25 miles at any given point. There's a 10% risk of that tornado being a strong EF2 or higher tornado. Memphis, you're in this now. All the way down to Jackson, Mississippi, Greenwood, Lake Providence, Tupelo, you guys, Jonesboro, Arkansas, 15% risk of a tornado, 10% risk of that being a strong tornado within 25 miles at any given location. This 15% risk tornado area goes all the way up through St. Louis, Jefferson City, and these storms are getting close. This area right in here is what we need to worry about supercells. We broaden this, and the yellow area just south of Davenport, so we click that. We just say there's a 10% risk of a strong tornado, since the 10% tornado risk matches the percent chance for significant tornado. So there's a 10% risk of a tornado, but there's a 10% risk also of that tornado being a strong EF2 or higher tornado, which is when it says significant, that's an EF2 or higher tornado. Bloomington, Quincy, down to Evansville, Clarksville, Madisonville. This could extend a little bit into Nashville here in the next update or two, but 10% risk of a tornado, of a strong tornado to all the way to just west of Nashville, all the way down to Tuscaloosa, just west of Birmingham, to Meridian, down over to Monroe, Hattiesburg, you're included in this, and goes to all the way to just east of Little Rock, all the way up to Columbia. These storms are starting to move into this area right now. And then if you live in that 5% risk area, that's a 5%, although the brown area, that is a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location, okay? The wind threat is still ongoing, and it's really focusing on this tail whipping line of storms that you see right here. Let's get this back in motion. The wind threat is being driven off these lines of storms here. This is producing extreme winds, very strong wind gusts. So we go back to this. If you live in this pink area, that's where you have a 45% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour and a 10% risk of those winds being significant, which is 70 to 80 miles per hour in this area. Des Moines, Davenport, down to St. Louis, Quincy, Kirksville, Columbia, Missouri, Effingham, down to Carbondale. So the red area, same thing. 10% risk of winds exceeding 75, 80 miles per hour. 30% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in any given location. Dubuque, Waterloo, over to Chicago now, Rockford. This has been extended a little bit further northeast and just east in general. All the way to just west of Indianapolis, down to Evansville. You have that significant wind risk and the 30% risk of those winds. And Memphis, Jackson, Tennessee, Jonesboro, Poplar Bluff, stops just south of Kansas City, Omaha. This is ongoing right now in these areas. Okay, and then in the yellow area, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. But you also have an extension a little bit, that hatch risk area of of significant winds exceeding, in this case, 70 to 80 miles per hour, which extends a little bit into that yellow area, especially on the central and northern mode of this severe weather threat. And then we have the risk of hail also, guys. So down here, especially if we can get any supercells going in the next several hours, I click on this in the red area. 30% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. 10% risk of that being significant hail, 2 inch in diameter or larger. Yellow area, 15% risk of hail, 1 inch. And then that hatch risk, black outline region with the black dashes going in between. Let's make this a little bit larger. Now extends all the way down into northeast Louisiana, Jackson, Vicksburg, Clarksdale, Oxford, Greenwood, Pine Bluff. You guys not only have the 15% risk of hail, but a 10% risk of this being large hail. Okay, so the reason this has been extended as far as the hail threat, the tornado threat, etc., south is because model guidance has really trended towards more storm development to the south. Once upon a time, the southern mode of today into tonight severe weather threat looked more conditional, meaning, if storms do fire, they could be explosive, produce all hazards, but are they going to fire? It looks like they are. They already are doing it right now in Louisiana. So let's finish off the run, and I'm just going to cover this area right here, the Midwest. Not going to get very far up into Wisconsin. You guys could get some severe weather, but I'm going to just keep it here. If y'all are yelling at me, mad at me up in areas of Wisconsin, I do apologize, but just going to keep it here in the highlighted area. So we take it, this is about 8 p.m. Central Time. I know it says 9 p.m., that's Eastern Time. So this is 8 p.m. These storms are blasting through Quincy, still moving through areas of Iowa. And then this is the alarming thing now. This is around 9 p.m. tonight, here in the next few to several hours. You see these storms right here? These are dangerous, guys. These are dangerous storms capable of producing strong, violent tornadoes. The ingredients are there. We have this slither of favorable storm fuel, CAPE, that kind of goes up into this area and fuels these storms. So, Popular Bluff, you got these supercells just west of you around 9 p.m. here in the next few hours. Okay? These storms blast through St. Louis around 9 to 11 o'clock this evening. These storms are moving through western Illinois, producing damaging winds and even a tornado threat. The further south you get into these storms right into here, the more scary they get. Downright scary. I mean, and you even got this cluster of convection right here, too, kind of in the Boot Hill and western Tennessee getting into western Kentucky. But I'm telling you, these storms right here could be violent and producing all hazards. Very large hail, damaging winds, strong tornadoes. We take it to about 11 p.m. I'm telling you, Popular Bluff, watch out. Down to Jonesboro. Look at these individual cells kind of detaching themselves. I mean, this is new. And then you get into central Illinois, point south. This is a damaging line of storms. And it's probably going to be damaging up here near Rockford, too. That's why you have that risk of significant winds up here. And then you get to this is midnight. These storms are still raging on into the Boot Hill, near Carbondale, up into Peoria. The storms have just moved through all the way. This is starting to get to closer to Evansville at this point. Mayfield, Paducah, these storms are starting to move in. And this is like, if you see my face lighting up, guys, it's because I got a door right here to my side and the sun keeps breaking through the clouds and then blasting the left side of my face. So if you're like, dude, why is your face lighting up? That's why. But anyways, getting off track. So this is around 1 a.m. Central Time. You got probably severe storms capable of producing all hazards moving into western Tennessee. Dyersburg, just west of Nashville. Look at these storms. And we'll zoom in a little bit further close to Tennessee. To northern Mississippi here in a second. But this line of storms around 1 a.m. moving through areas of eastern Illinois at this point. Storms moving through Chicago. And then we start to move into 2 a.m. This is 3 a.m. This is 4 a.m. Well, this is as far out as we can go. Let's actually look at this. Okay, this is 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., and then we introduce day 2, which is tomorrow, Saturday. So, just to kind of give you an idea, you got to know where you're on the map, because I know that this doesn't really show town names, but this is 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. Okay? That's how the storms cross through this area. The updraft Felicity swath over the next several hours, guys, is it's definitely, it doesn't look good. Now, we go back and look at this again. I'm going to look at the radar. There's still no tornado warnings ongoing right at this second. And, for example, the updraft Felicity swath is showing that these storms are supposed to be violently rotating right now. And they probably are. But just because you see these vibrant colors over St. Louis, down here in the southeast Missouri, into western and central areas of Illinois, etc., that doesn't mean that you're going to get a tornado that touches down. Just remember that. That's just where these are rotating in the upper levels of the atmosphere. But is that going to latch the surface? Big question. But these will be very strong storms making their way through this area. And there is kind of the spinning storms down here in western Tennessee that develop. Okay, and just because you don't see nothing right here where Tennessee and the Boot Hill and Arkansas connect, that doesn't mean you're not going to get anything. I can read, sometimes I'll read the comments that are like, well, it doesn't show that over my house, we're good. That's not the way you take this information. This is just one model run. We kind of go back and look at the 18Z, it looks a little different, okay? And this is the latest 21Z run, okay? It shows a big time rotating storm going right over St. Louis. But I mean, we are going to get some explosive storms over the next several hours in this area. Okay, significant tornado perimeter. I mean, look how high it is. And I've noticed that Weather Bell kind of overdoes it sometimes. But just, you see this vibrant area down here in like white, pink, purple, whatever you want to call it. Your STP values are spiking to well over 8, 9, 10, 11 in this area. They're not a 45. That's just overdone. But they are high. The ingredients are very high where you see these vibrant colors. Okay. Where you see any numbers, there's some ingredients for tornadoes. But the higher numbers, the more ingredients there is for tornadoes. And this is getting into 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight. Significant tornado parameter continues to be very high through this area until the line of storms moves through. Surface front really kind of calms down the atmosphere. Last thing we'll look at in this region is winds. And this goes all the way through about, let's just look back at this, all the way through about Saturday morning. And I mean, look, you're going to have an opportunity for 50, 60, 70 mile per hour winds in this entire area. Anywhere in this area on this map I'm showing you. Okay. So let's talk about the deep south. And this is not what we talk about Saturday. We're going to do that here in a second. First off, I want to mention, and they issued this, there's probably already a tornado watch in this area. But they issued this about an hour or so ago. It says T-storm, thunderstorm development anticipated in the coming hours with a tornado risk. A tornado watch is likely, is what they're saying. And let's see if they've actually issued a tornado watch in this area. They have. They just don't have the graphics that we'd like to see. But there's been a tornado watch issued in this area now. So I'm interested to see, though, if it's... I like looking at the map by map breakdown here. Getting a little off track, but that's all right. But yeah, tornado watch has been issued in this area. So, yeah, it's getting serious. It's getting serious in this region. But let's look back at this. So this is the latest. Let's make sure we got the latest run here. This is the latest HRRR model run. And we're starting it off kind of right now. And the HRRR model is doing a decent job of kind of showing some convection. It does show it dying off. Does that happen? I'm not sure. But this is around 9 p.m. Look at these supercells developing in central Arkansas near Little Rock. They might have to extend the severe weather threat a little bit further west in Arkansas. Heck, maybe even to the Arklatex. So we got two areas of storms, one forming in the Mississippi Delta area around 9 p.m. tonight, and these storms in central Arkansas. And we keep this going, and these look like explosive supercells in Arkansas. Around 9 p.m., Little Rock points east, and everybody included. We got some storms moving over in Memphis. But if these form, the ingredients are there for these storms, guys, to produce all hazards in this region. All hazards. If you get a storm that matures in this area, and this is around 11 p.m. tonight, you have an opportunity to get a violent tornado, a strong tornado. But you continue, and we start to get to about 1 a.m., 2 a.m. These storms are pretty strong, the severe in western Tennessee. You see these storms in Mississippi, they could be producing all hazards. We don't know exactly where these storms are going to be, but you take it all the way to daybreak tomorrow. It's around 7, 8 a.m. That's around 6 a.m. We take it all the way to, about 7, 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. And this starts, Saturday. And we already have a wide open sector developing and clearing. And we'll talk more on this here in a second. But we already have those storms starting to form right here. And these are going to be the storms to watch as they move in this way, in this direction in general. But we have to watch these storms tonight, guys. If these storms develop in Arkansas, Mississippi, northern Louisiana, western Tennessee, they are going to have the ability to produce all hazards. And this is the latest. Let's make sure we got the latest one. Yeah, so this is the latest HRRR model run, and it really likes where the Storm Prediction Center has that 15% risk area. I mean, it likes this area kind of into here. And like I said, any storms that form, Little Rock, Memphis, down to Tupelo, Oxford, I mean, Dyersburg, Jonesboro, the Boot Hill, Missouri. I mean, you guys are under the gun tonight. You got to be aware. I know a lot of focus is on tomorrow, but this is trending into definitely a worse situation for you guys as far as severe weather. So, and then if you look at the significant tornado perimeter, it spikes tonight. This is 8, 9 p.m. This is getting closer to midnight, 11 p.m. or so. And the significant tornado perimeter begins to spike, and then it's about to gear up again for tomorrow. Damaging winds is a threat down here, but I really think that's something we have to deal with a lot more once we get into Missouri and stuff like that. But Western Kentucky, Western Tennessee, even northern Mississippi, northern Arkansas, 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts are possible with any supercells that form. So, all right, guys, let's talk about the big threat. So, if you're just clicking on this timestamp, this is for Saturday. We have the infamous high risk, a level 5 out of 5 showing up in the pink. This is only the third time ever that this has been issued for day 2, meaning it has been issued the day before the day that the severe weather is supposed to happen. Okay, so it takes an extreme amount of confidence, literally a high amount of confidence for them to drop a high risk, even the day of. So this is a big deal. All right, so this is the latest information that we have. Okay, let's zoom into the high risk area. Click it, high risk. You hardly ever see this. All right, level 5 out of 5. I know I keep saying stuff like that, but it's just crazy. So, Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, all right, down to Moundville. I chased a tornado in this area a few years back. Meridian, over to Jackson, down to Hattiesburg, and all these small towns and communities in between. Just naming larger ones, Columbus. Stops just shy of Starkville. But just remember, don't get so tunnel vision on this. I hope you can see this pretty well on your screen. Okay, a high level 5 out of 5 risk. We zoom out. This is the moderate risk, level 4 out of 5. And this is going to change. We might get, the high risk might get larger, and then the moderate risk might get larger. Moderate risk, level 4 out of 5, we'll start north and work our way around this high risk. Huntsville, level 4 out of 5 risk of severe weather. Gadsden, okay, Rome, Georgia, stops in the western suburbs of Atlanta, all the way down to Auburn, LaGrange, Columbus, Georgia, Montgomery, Alabama, Dothan, Auburn, down Interstate 65. I have family down here in this region near Monroeville. If you're watching, hey, Mama and Pawpaw. All the way down here into Pensacola, Destin. I think I said Dothan, Enterprise, moderate risk, all the way down to Gulfport, Biloxi, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Vicksburg, up the Mississippi River from the Louisiana-Mississippi border. Already said Vicksburg, Yazoo City, all the way up here, including Starkville, just many areas, guys. Level 4 out of 5. And then let's tunnel vision on the enhanced risk, and then we'll kind of show everything else in a more broad point of view. Let's not ignore the severe weather threat for tomorrow. There's going to be its own threat tonight, but for tomorrow, for the enhanced risk in Nashville, Clarksville, I think there could be some tornadoes up in Middle Tennessee tomorrow. Chattanooga, Knoxville, the rest of northern Georgia, Blairsville, Helen, Athens, Atlanta, Dalton, down to Macon, Warner Brothers, Perry, Albany, down to Tallahassee, Florida, Thomasville. You guys have an enhanced risk. Panama City, let me slow down. The rest of the Bayou of Louisiana, Thibodaux, Houma, Lafayette, Alexandria, Monroe, Louisiana, a very small section, corner of southeast areas of Arkansas like Lake Village, Greenville, Mississippi, Oxford, Tupelo, Corinth, and then getting back into Jackson, Tennessee. So you guys have a level 3 out of 5 enhanced risk. Okay, the slight risk extends around it. Lexington, Louisville, you're still, included into this. Asheville, Greenville, Spartanburg, the rest of the Tri-Cities of Tennessee, down to Valdosta, and then over, bordering, getting into sections of Louisiana, Arkansas, and then extreme western Tennessee. One thing that has changed is the slight risk has dropped off. We only have a marginal risk up in Ohio now. So they've actually dropped the risk of severe weather up here. So just a marginal risk. Let's zoom into the high risk now. Okay, what's the risk of tornadoes? Right now, you have a 30% risk in this area of tornadoes within. You have a basically. Let me say this again. Let me slow it down. You got a 30% risk of a tornado within 25 miles of anywhere that you are standing, in this area. A 30% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. You got a 10% risk. It's not 30 plus 10. It's its own thing. You got a 10% risk of that being an EF2 or higher tornado. But this is crazy. A 30% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of wherever you're at in this pink area. And that includes everybody in the high-risk area I've already mentioned. Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Meridian, etc. Just to zoom in even a little bit more, just to make people feel better. Now I'm going to tell you, the next category up is a 45% risk. It doesn't go 30 to 35 to 40. Okay, it goes up another 15. The big question is this going to bump from a 30 to a 45% risk of a tornado? Guys, I think it will. I thought we would get a high risk. I didn't think we'd get it today. But I think we're going to get a bump up from a 30 to a 45% risk of tornadoes in this area. I don't see why we don't. We are going to get tornadoes in this area. Birmingham, yeah. So the next area you look at is the red area, which is huge surrounding it. If you live in that red area, which includes the moderate risk area, 15% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location, a 10% risk of that being a strong EF2 or higher tornado. Coleman, Florence, Huntsville, over to Columbus, just west of Atlanta, all of western Georgia, Rome, down to Dothan, Auburn, Mobile, Pensacola, New Orleans, all the way to Vicksburg, up the Mississippi River Delta area. And don't ignore the yellow area either, guys. This is a 10% risk of a tornado and a 10% risk of that being a strong tornado in the yellow area, all the way up into Nashville. All right, all the way down to Chattanooga, Atlanta, extending all the way into a very small section of the northwest corner of South Carolina. It includes western areas of North Carolina, Franklin, Murphy. And this area right over here, the eastern side of this is more so for what happens later tomorrow night. This gets all the way down to Macon, all the way down to the central coastline of the Panhandle of Florida, all the way down to the Bayou of Louisiana, Alexandria, Monroe, Louisiana. And I know I'm getting very lost in the details here, but I just want you guys to understand what area you are in, because I really think people struggle with geography. And it's not a knock on anybody, but there's truly people that do not understand where they are on a map. But don't ignore the 5% risk area, 5% risk in the brown of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. And then there's a 2% risk in the green area, which will extend out all the way up here. There's a 2% risk of a tornado all the way up to Detroit. So they have, the good news is, if you can find any in this, they've actually dropped the wind threat. I believe it was a 45% chance this morning. They bumped it back down to a 30% risk in the red area of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then that black outlined area got a 10% risk of this being a significant wind, which is winds exceeding 70, 75 miles per hour. So the wind threat, and I'll be honest with you, might not materialize as bad as what I was really thinking it was going to. But listen, if this bows out into a line of storms, which a lot of times they do in the later portion of the time period after they start off as supercells on a severe weather day, then the damaging wind threat will be quite severe. In Birmingham, Chattanooga, Atlanta, all these areas, all the way up into Tennessee, into sections of Kentucky. There's a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour in the yellow area. And then you got the hail threat. Okay. Basically, where a supercell can form anywhere, you're going to have the risk of very large hail. So in this red area, 30% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger, 10% risk of that hail being 2 inch in diameter or larger. In the yellow area, this is red, yellow, 15% risk of hail. But if you live in the red area with the black dashes going in between it, there's a 10% risk of hail, but there's a 15% risk of hail, but there's a 10% risk of that being significant hail, 2 inch in diameter or larger. So this is really highlighted, I think, where the Storm Prediction Center is more confident in supercells forming in this area, which is in the red area. Okay. All right, so now that we got all that done, let's break down what the radar could look like tomorrow. And I'm going to start off by kind of looking at Louisiana because the next graphic kind of cuts off Louisiana. So for my folks living in the state, great state of Louisiana, we're going to start this off. And this is new graphics. And notice it shows town names and everything. And you see the time, it says 8 a.m. CDT. Let me slow down, Central Time. So look up here if you want the time. So I don't have to say it every 5 seconds for you guys because I do forget. But you start to get into about mid-morning, 10 a.m. All right, there's scattered convection. This is getting into tomorrow morning. We take it to about lunchtime. Boom. Supercell forms just north or around Monroe. That might not be exactly where it forms, but it could. You see all this convection in Mississippi. Let's focus more so on Louisiana, though. But you keep going here. You see these. You see the kidney bean look right here? Those could be supercells. There's going to be rotating. Anywhere where you see these little kidney bean looks right here, it's kind of hooking like this. That's a sign that this particular run of the short-range model is trying to tell us where there's supercells. Atmosphere supports it. Okay, we start to get into 2 p.m. Supercells in southeast Louisiana. And then we start to get into 4 p.m. and it looks like it's clearing out, but don't ignore any other storms that could form in northern Louisiana before the atmosphere kind of loses some steam, if you will. Those storms could produce up there in northern Louisiana. And just remember, this model run is not exactly what's going to happen. It's just trying to give us an idea. Now, this is the highlighted area. We're going to start this off. There it is, 7 a.m. Central Time, which is where you guys, your time zone you're in Alabama and Mississippi. Okay? We're going to focus on these two states, and we'll show Georgia and Tennessee and the rest of everybody else here in a second. All right? It's showing on this run of the HRRR model, there's going to be storms crossing the Mississippi River. Already storming in Greenville, starting to move into Jackson. One thing I'm very concerned about, all right, this is getting into 9 a.m., this is getting into 10 a.m. This entire area right here, for the most part, is clearing. Yeah, sure, you see some convection down there, but for the most part, it is an unbothered area. This is a ripe and dangerous environment building into this area that's going to support explosive storms, supercells that are capable of producing violent, strong tornadoes. And listen, this is the environment that could support that EF4, EF5 tornado we haven't seen in years. We've seen many EF4s, but we haven't seen an EF5 in quite some time. The environment supports that kind of stuff. Okay, so we start to take it to about lunchtime. What are we looking at? Already at lunchtime, 12 p.m. tomorrow, we have supercells capable of producing tornadoes. When I say supercell, it's a rotating thunderstorm capable of producing all hazards. So, I mean, Tupelo, you got storms on top of you. I mean, you got storms around the Greenville area, Jackson, Meridian, right here, Hattiesburg. I mean, this isn't exactly what the radar is going to look like, guys. Just know that it looks like earlier in the day. What's wild to me is, one, you already got supercells just firing off. Normally on a severe weather day, it takes to about early to mid-afternoon at least before a severe weather event really unfolds. This is happening already. It could be already happening when we're waking up tomorrow morning. All right, you see these weird little slashes here? That is where it's picking up on a rotating updraft with a storm on this particular run. Okay, but we start to get into 1 p.m. Violent supercells in eastern Mississippi on this run. Look at this tornado producing supercell near Tuscaloosa. Okay, you keep this going, and then we start to get about 3 p.m., getting in about mid-afternoon. All these cells down in Hattiesburg near Gulfport to Gulf coastline are capable of producing tornadoes. Could be quiet in like southern Alabama for at least, through about early afternoon. It won't stay like that long. But look, all these are supercells, guys. It's like a supercell printer out here. And then we start to get into 4 p.m. This is 5 p.m. And we still have explosive storms out here. I mean, every single one of these storms could produce. Look at the storms over Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, down to Meridian. And you're starting to get a lot more activity, starting to move into central Alabama. And to keep this going, this is 6 p.m., 7 p.m. And even though this looks to kind of develop into more of a linear type look, just because it develops more into a line, that doesn't mean the tornado threat is just going to dramatically go down. The environment is still highly favorable for tornadoes. And then look down here, it's kind of more broken up, which means that these cells have more time to breathe. So They start to inch into southwest Alabama. This is 8 p.m. This is 9 p.m. All right, storms are still violent over central Alabama, eastern Alabama. Looks like you get a little bit of a clearing. Maybe some more storms trying to form back here. We'll see. But we got storms down here near Monroeville. I mean, down the interstate from Montgomery to Mobile. Okay. It doesn't show them looking quite as bad down here, but that doesn't mean that's going to be the case. Storms still capable of producing tornadoes around 10 p.m. tomorrow night. Okay. And it doesn't look like these storms are producing that much, but that doesn't mean they could. I mean, that doesn't mean they won't. But you start to get these storms, and I mean, look, these storms still look violent as they're starting to get close to Atlanta and into Georgia. This is midnight tomorrow night. So, yeah, I mean, even in the 2 a.m., you still got storms capable of producing all hazards all the way down to Dothan. So, it's just not a good look, guys. I mean, here's the time frame again, starting tomorrow morning. This is midday, early, mid-afternoon, tomorrow evening. And then we start to get into the overnight hours tomorrow morning. So it's not a good look, guys. And, you know, this is the significant tornado perimeter. It just goes off the charts once you get into about midday. I mean, you got STP values reaching 8 to 9 to 10 in this area, which means you have a violent atmosphere capable of producing strong tornadoes. And it does nothing but get worse as it moves into Alabama. To me, if I had to make a call, it looks like you're going to get an environment that supports more discrete supercells in Mississippi. But the environment is almost better as you get into Alabama for the sustaining of tornadoes. But, I mean, Mississippi and Alabama are certainly the highlighted states in this risk. And you take it into about 5 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, starting to get into the late evening hours. I mean, everybody almost in Alabama has the ingredients for tornadoes. You can see the sharp cutoff here. This is where the surface front's trying to work in. But, I mean, the ingredients for tornadoes begin to spike. And even in Georgia, as we're starting to get into midnight. We'll talk more on Georgia here in a second. But, you know, the updraft velocity swath through this area, guys, it's definitely alarming. You know, this is just where it's trying to pick up on where there's rotating updrafts, where there's rotating storms. And, you know, where there's a rotating storm, you have the possibility of a tornado. So, it's not a good sign. And I know I've been talking about this since about Monday. I've always had my eyes on Saturday as the big day. It's looking like it's going to be the big day. And I'm very worried for you guys down here. Now, I'm not trying to freak anybody out, but I just want you guys to be prepared. Know where you are. Have a reliable radar to look on your map. I really highly recommend, and I'm not saying this because they sponsor me or something. I don't have any sponsors. But I highly recommend downloading Radar Scope or either Radar Omega. Radar Scope, I say, is just because that's what I've always used. You can literally plug in your exact location, and it will literally drop an icon exactly where you are on this map. Okay? It's a great way to learn the storms. It's just a great app. It's been around for a while. And it's like $10 a year, not a month, a year. Could save your life. Now let's go up to Kentucky and Tennessee. Tomorrow morning we're waking up to a lot of storms. Or is the ingredients going to be ready for severe weather right when we wake up tomorrow morning? I think we could have some strong to severe storms. The big question is, as we get all this convection that gets all the way up into Bowling Green, Louisville, Lexington, everybody else in Kentucky, I think a flooding threat could materialize in this area. But look at these storms forming in sort of the western half of Tennessee. Clarksville, Nashville, very strong storms. You get a little bit of a clearing here, kind of between like Nashville, Cookeville, down to the Cumberland Plateau, Chattanooga. Does this clearing right here allow for the atmosphere to become more, and there's not much of a clearing right here, but you get what I'm saying. Does the little bit of clearing allow for the atmosphere to become more prime for tornadoes and severe weather? This is around lunchtime tomorrow. You keep this going. And then you start to get into 2 p.m. and you get just a flat-out clearing in eastern Tennessee all the way up into southeast Kentucky. And this allows and aids for these storms right here to become very strong to severe, capable of producing all hazards. Strong tornado risks exist all the way up through Middle Tennessee and even southern areas of Kentucky for a reason. And this is the reason. Look at this line of storms. And the flooding threat could get going in Kentucky up here and even Tennessee. But you see that little swath right here? This is, trying to show there's a rotating updraft. And I'm telling you guys, take this severe weather threat serious in Middle Tennessee to Eastern Tennessee up into Kentucky, especially Tennessee. Look at these splotches of like purple here. This just indicates violent storms. This 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m. The ingredients will drop off, no doubt about it, into Tennessee and to Kentucky, especially Kentucky for tornadoes. But listen, there's going to be a tornado risk through Tennessee. And this is getting into 10 p.m., 11 p.m. Look at this nasty line of storms between Knoxville and Cookeville right here. That is a violent line of storms, 11 p.m. Tons of wind energy. Low-level jet is screaming through this area. And then we can continue just to get storms all night. This is 3 a.m. Sunday morning. Just continue to get it. They'll draft helicity swath through this region. It does try to spike tomorrow afternoon through this region right into here. You start to see some values climb in numbers, but it never spikes too much. Nothing compared to your neighbors to the south. An updraft helicity swath through this region certainly shows rotating thunderstorms right through Middle Tennessee, and it dramatically cuts off in central Kentucky. So you got rotating thunderstorms through this region. Now, the wind threat through this region is serious. You got the low-level jet, just raging right over this area. If you're thinking, Mitch, I don't know what you mean by low-level jet, just think of a lot of wind energy, very strong winds over interstate speed about a mile above your head. This is aiding to a lot of strong winds to the surface also. Deep breath, man, almost 45 minutes deep into this. Crazy how fast time just rolls on by. But 50, 60, 70 mile per hour winds throughout this entire region. Anywhere, especially the lift up against the mountains. So if you live in these higher elevations in the mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina, well, you could get hurricane force wind gusts in this area. We'll round this off by speaking on Georgia and the Carolinas and anybody else included in what I showed. Let's not ignore Georgia here. Okay, Georgia, about 11 p.m. tomorrow night, some nasty weather begins to move in. We take it to about 1 a.m. This is Eastern time. Storms are rumbling through northern Georgia. The thing I'm concerned about is these storms from kind of north central Georgia, Atlanta, point south, and this entire environment kind of right into here as we get into the late night hours. 1 a.m. tomorrow night, not tonight, tomorrow night. You see these little areas right here? This is where we're having rotating thunderstorms. And to keep this going, these storms go right over Atlanta right after midnight. And these storms even down here, Cape 4 producing tornadoes. There's not much of a high, the moderate risk does extend all the way down to here for a reason, but Columbus down to Dothan, these storms are rumbling through, guys, and then we start to get into about 5 a.m. in the morning, storms going over to Athens, Greenville, Macon, Albany. And then whatever's left of this line begins to move over the rest of central and south central and southeast Georgia. And then these storms will greet you guys around, I live here in Columbia. It greets us around 8 a.m. Sunday. Will these storms still have any, punch, still pack a punch is what I'm trying to say. I think they will. I don't think the tornado threat will be near as high. But we are certainly going to have to deal with some nasty weather. In fact, as we get into about mid-morning, it looks like the atmosphere gets reprimed down here in southeast Georgia. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get a bump up. Right now, for Sunday morning into Monday morning, we have a slight risk. But I would not be surprised if we get a bump up to an enhanced risk in certain areas. And the storms look like they try to get going again in southeast Georgia and then like areas of South Carolina. Look at these storms. They start to get strong again in the eastern half of Georgia and South Carolina. And then they continue, and this is as far out as the run goes. And then the rest of North Carolina, Virginia, this is around 3 a.m. Storms are moving through the North Carolina mountains, very strong winds. Whatever's left over of this line continues to move across the western areas of the Carolinas and western Virginia. But I'll be honest, it doesn't look too bad, at least till about 10 a.m. mid-morning Sunday. And then the storms could really get going, and we could have a tornado threat that gets going across eastern North Carolina, eastern Virginia. This is areas where I would not be surprised if we get an enhanced risk. And this is as far out as we can go. To about 2 p.m., we definitely got a line of strong to severe storms capable of producing all hazards. Just nothing compared to the day before, which is Saturday. Significant tornado parameter does begin to spike into Sunday morning, and let's back it up here. It's definitely spiking over Georgia after midnight, around midnight, points after, for Sunday, Sunday morning. So you got the significant tornado parameters, 4, 5, and 6 in Georgia. In the wee hours of the morning, Sunday morning, then begins to spike in areas of the Carolinas and then into Virginia. So if we look at the updraft velocity swap between now and Sunday around 2 p.m., it does show some areas of rotation through these areas. So, yeah, guys, a lot coming up. So, I'm definitely praying for everybody involved in this. This is definitely a dangerous situation, and I just praying for God to protect everybody, and I know He will. Just remember, it's important to know what's going on. Don't just rely on your weather app, on your hourly forecast. We relay the information the best we can, but it's also, you also have to take a bit of responsibility for the safety of yourself, right? Just like with anything in life, definitely know where you are on the map, download a reliable radar app, and just, do it tonight if you live in Mississippi, Alabama, and everywhere else, and play around with it overnight, and figure it out. If you got any questions, put in the comments. Can't guarantee you I'll be able to get to it immediately, but praying for the best scenario. I hope this busts, and we're going to go over all this information one more time for Saturday and a Sunday for tomorrow morning's video, but God bless all y'all. Stay safe tonight. I'll talk to you again soon.